Hey everybody, Michael Regan back with another edition of my CD collection review. And like I did last weekend with the first two versions of these that I put out, I pick a band that was really influential to me and I take a look at my whole CD collection and I try to put it in some sort of order based on where I sit today in 2020. So not necessarily the batting order I might have picked when these records came out or when I first started listening to them, but they're where I am today, and here we are in the midst of a stay-at-home season. So I'm really learning to use that time to do a lot of creative things, and one is to go back and revisit my album collection, which of course is now all on CD, because that's the way I've been going over the last 25, 30 years. And so I'm going to review for you another one of my all-time favorite bands. And this band needs no introduction. It's maybe in most hard rock fans' top five, and that band is Led Zeppelin. So as I went and pulled my Zeppelin collection off the shelf, one thing I noticed that was different than my Genesis collection is this is a band where I own everything that Atlantic put out officially. So there may be a lot of Zeppelin music out there that either fell into the non-official releases or bootlegs, but in this case, I've got all the records, so this will be a fun way to review them. I don't have to do any asterisks by the missing CDs. And as I do, I'll highlight a few things that I really enjoyed about the record, so let's get started. Again, I'm going to do these from my lowest to highest, but the thing I should point out with Led Zeppelin is that I still listen to every one of these discs from top to bottom and enjoy them thoroughly. Some more often than others, and that's how I came up with the batting order, but I love them all. There's not a stinker in this collection. So we'll start off with the final Atlantic release. After John Bonham passed away, the band put out a record that basically pulled together a lot of studio tracks that they never really worked all the way through to an album. So these were either outtakes or these were tracks that just weren't finished, or in some cases finished and just didn't make the cut. That album is Coda. Now, Coda is a great record. It's just a little bit different than other Zeppelin releases in that it moves around through different tracks that don't all feel like they were written or recorded at the same time, because they weren't. But any CD that kicks off with "We're Gonna Groove" has my attention quickly. So I'll start off with Coda, and I will follow it up by the release that preceded it, In Through the Outdoor. Now, this is a great record, guys, but a lot of folks, when this came out, had a lot of questions about, was Zeppelin kind of crossing into the pop world? And you have to remember, when 1979, when this was released, a lot of things were changing in rock and roll, and some bands were trying to figure out how they were going to move into the 80s. And I don't think Zeppelin had a plan of slowing down at this point or stopping at this point. But of course, with the passing of John Bonham, that all ended in 1980. But In the Evening is the kickoff track here, and All of My Love, I'm Gonna Crawl. These are some favorites of mine. But I know some folks listen to Fool in the Rain and they think, gosh, that sounds like a pop song. And like we discovered with my Genesis review, in this era, some of my rock bands were delving more into writing pop songs, but a great record nonetheless. Prior to that record was the record Presence. And for me, this one was kind of the last of the great Zeppelin rock albums. You kick on Achilles' Last Stand, and it just kicks into gear. Nobody's Fault But Mine, another one of my favorites. And T for One is a really cool closing track on this one. I do love to put on Presence from time to time. And again, a great record, just not as high up as some of the ones that follow. Now, this one's probably going to shock somebody, because I know somebody's going to look at this and think, how is that not in your top three? But I'll explain. Next up is Physical Graffiti. Now, guys, this is a monster of a record, and I bought the release that has the cool breakout sleeve. All the New York record windows, you could see through them. That was really cool. And this is the release with 4 discs. So this has not only the original double album, but also plenty of live takes and extra tracks. It's a great record. Honestly, the only reason it lands lower for me than some of the ones that are coming up next is it's just big. It's a lot of music. And sometimes I don't find it enjoyable to sit down for an hour and a half and just listen to everything on there back to back to back. I need to break it up a little bit. So that's the only reason it's lower. The music, fantastic, and lots of people's favorite Zeppelin songs are found on Physical Graffiti. The next one I'm going to pick is one that when it came out in 1970 caused some Zeppelin fans to scratch their heads. They thought, what is the band doing? For me, I found this to be a really cool album when it came out, and that was Zeppelin III. Now, Zeppelin III, don't get me wrong, it's got an interesting mix of hard rock, traditional rock, blues, folk. It's a lot of different styles on there, even some really great just acoustic styles. Don't forget that really cool spinning album cover. They did that on the CD release as well. Love that. Love the trifold that you get with the original album art in there. Very cool. Look, when you kick off with Immigrant Song, it's hard not to have a great record. For me, Out on the Tiles, what a great song. Tangerine, That's the Way. These were some really fun songs, and I love putting this back on and listening to it all the way through because for me, I enjoy the shade and the light, just like you're seeing through my window today. A little shade and light. We'll take it. All right, this one will also surprise somebody that it's not higher, but I'll give you a good reason. It's Zeppelin I. Now, don't misunderstand me. I wore this thing out when I was in high school. I love Zeppelin I. Again, you get the trifold in this CD release. These are all the re-releases, by the way, that came out 2015 and 16. Maybe it was 14 and 15. But look, Good Times, Bad Times, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, Dazed and Confused, Communication Breakdown, How Many More Times? I mean, top to bottom, this thing's a burner of a record and a great debut. If I were doing a list, maybe I'll do this at some point. If you guys are interested in knowing where I pull out of my collection my best debut albums of all times, this would be on that list for sure. It's amazing. Zeppelin got a little bit of flack when it came out because a lot of these songs borrowed loosely from some old blues standards. And at the time, people thought maybe they didn't do enough to acknowledge where those songs came from. They took ownership of them on the credits, and they've sorted that out over the last 40, 50 years. But don't let that stuff distract you from the amazing music that's on Zeppelin I. All right, next up, I guarantee you somebody's going to be confused, dazed and confused, as to why this one isn't my best or favorite Zeppelin record. It's self-titled Led Zeppelin, or as we sometimes called it in high school, Zeppelin IV. Look, don't hear me wrong. This is a classic in every sense of the definition. And Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Misty Mountain Hop, Four Sticks, Going to California. These are great songs. My favorite on here, When the Levee Breaks. But probably because of Stairway to Heaven, I don't put it on as often. I skip around that, and that's a weird thing for me to do. It's not because I don't think it's an epic song. Just kind of tired of it. I've heard it a lot. So it's number 3. Coming in at number 2 will make real clear quickly where my number 1 is. And I had a little bit of trouble with this because there have been times when either of these have occupied my top slot. I would say maybe back in college, this next one would have maybe been my top slot, but in high school, it would have been number 2, and I'm kind of back to that spot again. It's Houses of the Holy. And holy moly, this is a great record. Again, all the cool original album art that you got from this in the early 70s is here. I mean, look, this one is amazing. The song remains the same. The Rain song, Over the Hills and Far Away, these are classics. I'm kind of a big fan of the Crunge. I think it's a cool track. Some people love it, some people don't. But the wrap up on this one with No Quarter and the Ocean, holy smokes. This is an amazing record, and I love listening to it today, as I do Zeppelin II, my favorite in my Zeppelin collection. And I can't tell you why this thing never leaves the top 1 or 2, other than it's maybe some of the most amazing music ever written. How cool is this? You take the original album cover, and it's just like you remember when you had the LP, and they do it as the trifold so you can see all the cool artwork inside. Guys, this record is just full of some of my favorite Zeppelin songs ever. Whole Lot of Love, What Is and What Should Never Be. The Lemon Song, Thank You, Heartbreaker, kicking right into Livin' Lovin' May, just like we remember on FM radio. Ramble On, Moby Dick, and my favorite Zeppelin track of all times, Bring It On Home. That is some bluesy hard rock if I've ever heard it. So that's my collection. I'm going to give one honorable mention to, again, an official Atlantic release, that is in my collection, and it came out not that long ago. It came out certainly after they were finished recording, but Jimmy Page found a bunch of great recordings from the early 70s, and they packaged this called How the West Was Won. It's a live record. It's a 3-disc collection, as you see, and man, if you wanted to hear Led Zeppelin in their amazing 70s prime, check out How the West Was Won. It is my favorite live Led Zeppelin record. Okay, that's my record collection. That's my Led Zeppelin collection, so let's review it again real quick. Top slot, it's Zeppelin II. Houses of the Holy comes in next. Self-titled Led Zeppelin, or Zeppelin IV, if that's how you remember it when you were young. Zeppelin I, the first release, Led Zeppelin, it was amazing. Led Zeppelin III, again, maybe my most interesting version of Led Zeppelin in the collection. Physical Graffiti, you can't go wrong with it. Just break it up. It's a lot of music. Presence, a hard rocker. Man, the last great rocker from the Zeppelin collection. It's a doozy. Into the Outdoor. And again, I didn't show the back. It's that cool brown sleeve, just like they did on the albums. It's great. And then rounding it out, an official release, not an official studio album, but Coda, I still think has some gems on there. And like I said, We're Gonna Groove is well worth it. That's my Zeppelin collection. I hope you guys found one that you enjoyed. If you have some comments, I'd love to read them below. If you have some thoughts on the way your order might have gone, add those in as well. And if you want to share it, look, I'm not ashamed of my one of my favorite bands of all time. That's my Zeppelin collection. Thanks for listening. Go have a great day.